Hello everyone, Rare Model Reviews here, and today we have the Master Grade Zaku II 2.0 Dozle Zabi. So this is actually what I meant to do a long time ago. I actually built this thing maybe a month ago, if not longer. Just has so many unboxes coming in and what have you that I'm kind of pushing this thing back. So I want to actually apologize to Tree Buff here, as he's the one who mentioned how much he wanted to see this thing. So that inspired me to get this thing done sooner rather than later. I was mildly excited to build it, but not as much as I say for the F90, which of course I have since built as well. So that'll be the next thing I review after this one. Uh, but moving on, one signature thing about this kit that makes it, of course, P-Bandai is not only the fact that it's kind of a recolor of the actual Zaku II 2.0, but also the fact that it has these amazing gold decals all over the body here. So that's going to be on the arms, on the back of the skirt armor here, back of the legs. These things are everywhere. They weren't too hard to put on either. They're dry rub on, if I didn't say that already. And overall, they really make this thing pop. There's also some water slide decals that are exclusive to this kit. I meant to put all that, but I never got around to it. There's also some sticker style decals as well, so I might end up putting all of those on. I'm not honestly sure. The water slide ones I probably definitely put on because they're just stuff like you to wrap around like the little horns around the shoulders and whatnot. So I don't think those things detract it too much, but I'm afraid the sticker ones would kind of just clutter up the overall kit. So I'm gonna have to decide on what I'm gonna be doing with the decals for this thing soon, because I want to flat coat this thing, or top coat I should say, just to make sure these stay on, because if any of these flake off at all, it'll ruin the kit. So that's one thing I'd suggest if you guys were to pick this thing up, whether that be on P-Bandai when it comes back on sale, or if you decide to be impatient, use something like eBay or Buy. Again, you definitely want to top coat these things to make sure these stay on. So I'm, of course, trying to avoid putting these on. I'm sorry, touching these things, because I do not want these to fall off. And as you can see, they're just everywhere, even like the back of the heads and the backpack, and they really just make this thing pop. Now, I can say I definitely didn't put these things on perfect. They're probably not all symmetrical or perfectly centered or whatnot, but personally, I think they look good enough to where they make the thing pop, whether I did a good job of doing so or not. So, long introductions aside, we'll be now getting into the articulation of this guy. So, first and foremost here, we have the mono eye, and let me see if I actually tweak this brightness a little bit, because I feel like it's kind of making it hard to see inside the helmet. Could be wrong, maybe I need to make it brighter, but as you can see, that mono eye is there. I'm trying to get this thing as close as possible. So one cool thing that Zaku's always have done, and I'm not sure if you guys can make that out, but when you move the head there, the mono eye there, I'm trying to move this thing as close as possible. Maybe I do need to make it brighter. Hold on. I want you guys to see this. Is very important part here. Does that make it better? I'm debating. But basically, when you move the head, the model eye kind of moves with it. Especially when you move it kind of like far back like that. Again, I'm not sure if you guys can pick that up, because this model eye is not really being picked up too much. It's really kind of darkened in there. I can see it just fine, but I'm not sure if you guys can, but you get the gist of it. You move the head, the model eye moves with it. So that's a very cool detail with this kit that I always loved. So moving on here, we have the arms. As you see, those go 360 all around. They can move up about here. I won't say the shoulder armor really just hinders the movement. That's actually very nice shoulder armor here. As you can see, it's on like a ball joint. So you can actually move this around quite a bit. It's unnecessary, but it does allow you to, of course, ensure that that shoulder armor doesn't get in the way. So I'm not going to complain about it. As you can see, the below the shoulder there moves 360. Perfect bend there. Hands on a ball joint, so that can move 360. Also has a nice little swivel joint there. So as you can see, it can kind of move inwards there. It can move in as well. Do a nice little push up, no problem. I forgot what it was. I think it's a Start Jigging. That's a way older so that's a much newer kit. And as you can see, this one's way older. And this has perfect, like, the hands can move everywhere. Oop. As you see, it's like on a bit of a C-clip there. I moved a little too much to pop off, but, oh gosh, no, I just want to pop back on. There we go. But yeah, it's just, again, you can do a lot with that hand. The thumb there, as you can see, it's on a ball joint, so it can move all over the place. It's easier to say that. These are the 2.0 style hands. So If you wanted to, you could actually cut out the 3 digits here, so you can make them all move individually. I decided not to do that because one, it's not really much of a reason to, and I feel like the last time I did that, I really made the fingers a little too loose for my taste. But again, what makes these a 2.0 hands is the fact that uh, these hands are, there's not just one part that you snip out of a runner and then put into the hands. There's 2 parts you actually connect into. So I'm not sure if you guys can make that out, but as you can see the fingers here, they can kind of bend in a little bit. So the thumb doesn't, but the actual other 4 fingers do. So it's not really much you could do with it, but it's still a nice little gimmick in my opinion that you can do. But moving on, so I feel like I've been dragging my feet here as is. There's a bit of a side to side with the waist, ab crunch as well. And I guess I'll show this now. I don't feel like there's much of a reason to wait, but you can actually move out the cockpit here. There's actually 2 flaps to this thing. And oh gosh, I don't have my tweezers here, so I might not be able to put this thing in. There we go. Hold on, the heat hawk helped me. So there's 2 doors here, and as you can see, there's the pilot figure in there as well. One cool thing you can do, I believe you have to take off the backpack for it, but oof, I'm not sure if I want to do that. But I should be able to move it with this. There's like a little mechanism. Again, I'm pretty sure it's in the backpack, but if you notice that there, hold on, let me open the other one out again. Here we go. If you can see there, you can move around the pilot figure, so depending on which way you want this pilot to be posed, you could do just that. I kind of like to make a little funny joke that if the pilot had control of the cockpit there, he'd probably be able to kind of shift and move it around to avoid getting shot by like a beam or something. But moving on. The side armor there, it moves out to the side and wiggles a little bit. These are both individually movable in the front as well. Those can also wiggle a little bit. And then the back armor, I actually meant to take this off. That's going to be for later. But hey, now you know you can put the little drums on the back there. It only comes with one though. But the side armor moves up. And going on to the legs, actually I can move this again. This thing can almost do a split. It might actually be able to do a split with the side armor here. It kind of hinders it a bit. It can move up very high. The front armor doesn't hinder that much at all. And again, can move back pretty well. Have a perfect bend there at the legs here. And the way they structured these wires here is actually on a spring. So this doesn't hinder the movement at all. The back of the armor moves a little bit, although I don't think that's supposed to do so, but it's not snapping off. So there's a bit of upwards movement there. It can move out about this much. Also has a bit of a toe movement as well. It's on a ball joint, so it can move side to side pretty well. And as you can see there, this little front part here that I'm pointing at can move a little bit as well. It's about 360 movement on the legs there as well. I think that's about it for articulation. I can't think of anything else I might have missed out on. The thrusters can move a little bit, not much at all. It's not really worth mentioning. But now I think we're gonna go ahead and go on to accessories. So first one, I guess I'll go on to because I already kind of showed you guys off, is the Heat Hawk. It's supposed to be molded in purple, but it's just all in gray. But there is a peg right here that we have, and there's a peg in the hand as well. I don't believe I mentioned that. It's a peg on actually in both hands. So of course you'd be able to put this in either hand as you desire. So get this thing in here. There you go. And as you can see, just with a peg alone, it holds pretty well. So you shouldn't have any problems using this Heat Hawk. And then we also have this little piece here that you'd peg onto either side of the skirt. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the left side there, so it makes sense of it for it to kind of cross grab it. And then you just go ahead and peg that thing right in there, like so. So you'll be able to stow away the Heat Hawk when it's not in use. Another weapon it has is this giant Heat Hawk. So this one does not, oh actually no, I'll take that back. pegs right there. So this one has a peg, as you can see, it's only on that one side. Now, this thing is one of the signature weapons. In fact, it's the only exclusive weapon to this kit. But for anyone who's played Gundam Evolution, the this Zaku here features in that game. It is called the melee type, I believe it was, the Zaku melee type. But this suit did feature in Gundam Thunderbolt as the Royal Guard. But originally, of course, this kit was created as a mobile suit variation, where it's titled as, again, Dozle Zabi's custom Zaku. But anywho, if I can get this thing in here, I had it on for a second and knocked it off. Try to get this finger. I don't know what is wrong with this finger. This finger loves to spin around for some reason, but you can get this thing in. Just giving me some troubles. Here we go. Much like the other Heat Hawk, it's in just fine. Oop. If you wiggle a little too much, it will come out, but again, it does hold. And I'm not going to play around with it too much, as you get the gist of it. But if you wanted to peg this thing in, just like the normal Heat Hawk, you put it in just at that little orange part of the handle there, and it clips in. Now, I think I kind of cut myself off, but I'm honestly not much of a fan of the color scheme of the Heat Hawk. I feel like they could have used a bit more vibrant colors and what have you, especially that silver. That silver looks very bad in my opinion, but regardless, it's nice that it's there, as it kind of has to be. But here we go. We have the Zaku machine gun. Now, one thing I want to mention is this scope here has quite a long range of movement, and there's a clear pink piece here. They actually tell you to put the silver one in, but this kit has the option of pink and silver pieces, and actually you can still move the scope around with the drum in. Just want to mention that. And also the little grip here to the side also moves as well, wide range of movement. But anyway, this kit has clear pieces and pink pieces. I believe the pink pieces were for the Dozle Zabi version, and the clear one was with the normal version. So there's quite a few leftover pieces this kit has. So I, of course, used as many of the pink pieces as possible, to the point I don't think there's a single one left on a runner, except for, actually no, there's one more left. Some reason there's an additional pink piece you could use for the visor, not the motor eye, but the clear glass that goes over the eye itself. So of course I use clear, so the motor eye would show up better. But again, it's nice that you have those options. So as you can see here, the gun holds in with that peg pretty well. And if you were to play around with it, oop. That's the thing about some of the older kits. The pegs aren't the best. They hold in decently enough, but they're very finicky and things tend to fall off that peg very easily if they're tapped and what have you. But anywho, if you play around with this thing, get it in the position just right, you can, of course, have it hold the gun up in that additional little grip there for the gun as well. Of course, you could do a bit of a better pose than that, but this is just me trying to show you off to you guys that, again, you indeed can use said weapon. And if you'd like to store the weapon on the suits, there is a little flap there on the side here, and you just kind of prop it in like so. Oops. I believe there's a more of a flush way of holding it, but again, there you have it. Although I should not think about it. I think it might more so be for the bazooka, but moving on to the bazooka, speaking of double. Much like the machine gun, it has a scope here that is movable. Make sure you guys can actually see it. It is also a little piece here for the scope that you could flip open. Let me actually get something I can use to pry it out. So the piece that you use to get this thing in here is actually pretty small. I'm not even be able to get this thing open. A fingernail good enough to do it? Ugh. One time I forget my freaking tweezers. Of course I need it. But you can't get this thing open. There's like a little clear piece inside. There we go. I finally got it. So yeah, there we go. There's a clear scope in there you could use. And this thing looks like you can only put it on the right hand as there's no pegs for it. You could, of course, try, but I honestly wouldn't recommend try with these things without the peg. Not sure if I mentioned you guys, but there's a little additional handle that you can move as well. But anywho, so we're gonna go ahead and put this thing in. Now, one thing I actually forgot to mention, I'll show off to you guys in a second. There's actually multiple pegs for this thing. And the purpose of that, of course, is because there's two different ways that you could have this thing hold the bazooka. So, of course, you can't have him hold the bazooka with this handle as well. So actually the other hand came out the bazooka, but actually that's it's kind of good to do that because as you can see here, it can actually hold the bazooka up pretty decently, even without the peg. Especially having what is that, under the shoulder? So you guys want to show off one more time. You see the two different positions you can put these things. So I believe you want to use the bottom position when you put it, under the shoulder, but over the shoulder, you want to use the top position. That's one thing I want to mention about this kit here. These little pieces here for the wires, they do not stay in very well. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. I tried for a while to get those things in just right, and they always kind of pop off. So those are very finicky. But again, as I was saying, if you want to hold this thing over the shoulder, it can do so just fine, actually, without the peg. So I kind of was lying when I said that earlier. So you honestly probably could have this thing dual wield the machine gun and bazooka without too much issue. But this handle does not move at all. So again, that's the whole point of them having multiple pegs. So you could position this thing over the shoulder a little better by utilizing the right pegs and what have you. Again, that finger is an issue. The fact that it wants to spin around like that makes it a bit of an issue to try to even get the hands open to do so. But again, you get the gist of it. You put this thing over the shoulder and then you'd peg it in and what have you. But again, this thing is really giving me issues. I'm gonna try one more time. If this thing still gives me issues, I'm gonna move on because I only have like technically one more accessory I wanted to show, and that's really it. Again, it holds in decently, even without the pegs and what have you. So this would be basically how it would work. But again, between the fingers giving me issues and how kind of tricky it is to even get that peg in, it's a bit of a pain. But actually, no, I'll take that back. There's actually one more thing I want to show you guys off. This bazooka, they kind of went a bit of a lazy way of doing it. And instead of giving you two separate bazookas, in order for you to give, you actually have to parts form this thing to transform it to the giant bazooka. So this is actually the Dom's bazooka, what the Dom usually uses. So again, it's the same idea as before, depending on which way you want to hold this thing. You would, of course, move it accordingly. Peg it into position in the hands, and then you'd be able to again use that giant bazooka. So I'm not patient enough to really play around with that peg, so it held for a second till it fell off, but this little piece here dangles. Again, it uses the same middle piece, so it still has access to the scope and the additional handle, but again, this is how the giant bazooka would look. And much like the machine gun, when not in use, you just go ahead and put it onto the little back piece there to hold it up. Again, I'm pretty sure there's a more effective way of doing so. I don't think it's supposed to be that loose or wobbly, but I'm guilty of not taking a second peek in that menu to make sure I put everything in just right. But moving on. So you do have the little adapter piece that you plug in just between the legs to have this thing on a stand. I actually forgot to bring an action base to do so. I'm a little unprepared this review. I apologize for that. I'll probably try to show this thing off on a stand again. If you guys really wanted to see it on the action base on a separate view. I'm going to bring this thing back out in the near future. This also, of course, comes with a pilot figure. So standard one you see is molded all in the body color of the Zaku itself. Now, this thing actually comes with a few optional pieces. Technically, I don't think you're really supposed to use them. These, again, leftover pieces from the standard release. These, of course, being the standard heads for the normal Zaku. I decided to snip them out either way. So, I believe I should be able to take this head off, no problem. I felt myself scratch that decal. I got a little scared for a second there. But again, just take the head off of there, and voila. So now you can have a grunt unit for the Royal Guard here that were stationed on a Balku as seen in Thunderbolt. They were dispatched rather easily by the task force that was sent to claim the colony. I'm sorry, the interior. You have now this one interesting they did here is they have the modern version of the commander's antenna here. And then they also have the classic version of the antenna here. You guys may have seen me try to apply some pieces out with it. So that's one very interesting thing they try to do. So I always try to do some fan service here and say that this is Dozle's custom headpiece here, which signifies, that's his unit. Whereas the ones without the golden markings are the Royal Guard. He'd, of course, be like the captain of the Royal Guard. Of course, I use a classic one because it kind of looks a bit different from the modern antenna. Of course, Dozle's looks way different than this one. As you can see, it's a bit thicker, but again, I just wanted to kind of show that off here. Now, another thing you can do as well, I'm trying to think how you're supposed to do this. I think you're supposed to take, let me see, there we go. One thing you can also do is you can also, you got to really push that thing in to get them in solid. But yeah, let me go use the default headpiece while I'm at it. There we go. Now it's in. But yeah, it has the original Zaku's additional pieces as well. I think you're supposed to use this one on the right side. But you, of course, would just replace the pieces like so. So now you have that iconic shoulder piece there. These actually aren't as hard to take out as I thought they'd be. And although it doesn't look too different from Dozle's, actually here, let me do a side-by-side comparison. So as you can see here, they are different. There's only one horn on the classic version, whereas there's two on this one in the middle, one on the top, which is what's kind of more centered. So again, it is worth switching them out technically if you want to make them look that bit more different. So there you go. So that'd be the alternate way of comprising this Zaku if you want to make it look more classic, as opposed to it looking like the Goof. And speaking of Goof, I actually decided to take this thing out. So for those of you who do not know, the Goof actually shares the same frame as the Zaku II 2.0. The Zaku came first, and they made the Goof using its frame. And strangely, the Goof is actually a bit taller than the Zaku, if you can make that out. I'm going to attribute that to the feet here. The feet are also a lot wider and bigger on the Goof, which I like because that's one thing I always love about the Zeon suits. Because they have those big flat feet, these things never have problems standing up at all. And I also want to mention this thing is pretty solid. The waist is a little wobbly, but as you can see here, if I hold the waist, this thing doesn't move at all. So I had this thing built for, again, about a month or two. I haven't really posed it too much though, so that's also probably another reason why it feels so solid. But actually, one thing I wanted to do while I have it around, I had this thing actually holding the heat sword here. Only reason why it's still not in hand is it fell out. But I'm actually curious to see as to whether this thing can hold the Ghost accessories. I'm assuming it can because I'm sure use the same hand parts, but I could actually use the left hand since I've been using the right hand for everything. One thing I can't say about this heat sword is the Ghost heat sword actually is notorious for having a bad peg, so it doesn't hold in very solid. Let me try the right hand. Oh. Let's talk about how solid this thing is, and it falls flat on its back when I try to put the sword in. So it holds in the right hand well, but not the left hand, so that's interesting. So if you were curious, you can have it share its brother's accessories, but again, I guess that's kind of it, really. I can't really think of anything else to really go over with this kit. First and foremost, I'm going to say just about every 2.0 Bandai has ever created has been a masterpiece. So I'm going to recommend this thing. I'm going to do something a little strange with my recommendation, though. I'm not going to necessarily recommend this Zaku in particular. Not that it's bad or anything. It's just that there are literally a dozen Zaku 2s out there, Zakus in general. You name a Zaku, they've built it. They really milked the 2.0 frame. And same with even the Gundam 2.0's frame. They milked that thing too. They made different versions of the Gundam, from the full armor to the gem. They made plenty of gems, actually. There's the G3 they made. You know, there's a dozen different variants for these 2.0 kits. Even for the Gelku 2.0, again, there's plenty of them. So if you love Xeon Zakus, which I'm sure you do, everybody loves Zakus, there's literally a different version of any of them. So whether you want just Shars to be simple, or you just want the classic Zaku, I highly would recommend the Zaku II 2.0. It's amazing. It still holds up very well, even despite the fact that this thing is maybe 15 years old or so. It's an amazing kit. It looks great. It poses perfectly. Honestly, I'm a little guilty, or at least I feel guilty that I didn't get a Zaku II 2.0 sooner, particularly Shars. Eventually, I will end up picking one up. It'll probably be an impulse buy if I do. But again, I can't praise this thing anymore. I could definitely say I plan on getting another one of these things in the near future. You'll see which version of that particular suit I will get. But I'm trying so hard to get this thing in, in while I'm talking. But honestly, that's it for the review. I feel like this thing's going on way longer than I planned on. I thought this would have been a nice, easy 15-minute review, but it's never the case with me, I've noticed. But regardless, guys, this has been a Rare Model Reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. And one thing I also want to point out is, if you guys noticed, I finally got myself a light ring here to help out the lighting. I know that's been a big issue in some of my reviews lately, and why I've been putting out more unboxing reviews. I've kind of doing that just to keep the channel going while I figure out the whole lighting situation. But please tell me how the lighting looks on this thing. It looks pretty good to me so far. So the next step, of course, would be for me to do a little bit better with my camera work, and then finally start editing, so we can have a lot less moments while I'm fiddling around with stuff, and get to the juicy parts where I actually review the thing a bit more professionally. But again, I'll see you guys in the next review.